Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another short story versus episode video. And this time we're going to be discussing The Perfect School, short story versus episode. Now, to kind of refresh you on some short story versus episode things I usually cover in the beginning of the video, I don't grade short stories from triple header and tales like normal books or episodes. I give them in 0.5 increments. So if there's some type of grade disparity that you're looking at that doesn't kind of add up, that's because I don't give exact pointages for short stories. So a lot of the times, if, like, for example, if I give a short story a 5 out of 5 and I give an episode, I don't know, a 4.7 out of 5, they're actually pretty close because I'm rating the episode on a more precise scale and I'm giving the Tales short story or the triple header short story a more approximation type of scale. So for this specific short story, The Perfect School, this is another one like Don't Wake Mummy, where it depends on which day of the week it is or what side of the bed I wake up on. I can lean a 4.5 or 5. Last time I read this, I had a ball with it. I think it's fun. I think it's creepy. So I really don't have anything negative to say against it, so I'll give it a 5 out of 5. And then for the episode, I think this is well done in its own regard. This is one that does change a lot of things from the episode. Keeps a lot of the framework the same, but it also adds some characters. It also adds some scenes. It also changes the aesthetics. We're getting kind of ahead of ourselves. But in its own right, I gave this a 4.6 out of 5 and still think this is great on its own regards. Now, this might shock you, but I think I have a clear favorite, and you might not be expecting which one it is. So you got to stay tuned till the end of the video. But yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. So, in these short story / book versus episode videos, I like to run down some common things. First off, we like to run down the characters. Which version of a character do I prefer in what setting? Do I prefer the ones in the short story or book? And do I prefer it in the episode? Then we kind of run down the atmosphere. Which one do I think have better atmosphere? And that kind of stems into two things we sometimes talk about, which is tone. In this case, I don't think tone is different to discuss, so we're not going to bring up tone. But there are different aesthetics to bring up, and we will be discussing aesthetics. We also like to discuss overall plot. Which one do I think has a better overall plot? Which one do I think has a better climax? And which one do I think has a better overall ending? Okay, so let's start off with characters. Let's start off with the main character, Brian O'Connor. In the episode, I think Brian has a little more layers to him. You kind of see more pranks involved that elicit him getting sent to this boarding school. Whether you agree he deserves to get sent there or not, that's kind of debatable. But you kind of see an action that gets him sent there, as the short story does not provide. And you also get this more heroic sense, I feel, out of this episode version of Brian. Comes off more like a hero, kind of. If you want to call him an anti-hero even, or an accidental hero, that's actually pretty accurate too. But Brian, I think, has more layers in the episode than the short story. But they both kind of run down this same journey with Brian as he befriends this kid named CJ. And he may or may not be deceived by this CJ person that he trusts throughout the story. And he goes through some traumatic things in either version you go. In the short story, I don't want to spoil the aesthetics, but it's something completely different from the episode, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But if I had a preference, since I haven't brought up the short story as much, everything that Brian goes through in the short story, he goes through in the episode, but I think it's just done better. So in the case for Brian, I also think that Sean Roberts playing him, really elevating his character and giving him one of the best iconic performances of the TV show. I'm going to give the edge of Brian to the episode. CJ, I think I'm going to go ahead and just say he's kind of deadlocked. I'm not a fan of the actor of CJ in the episode. I don't think he's that great of an actor. In the book, I think he's more profound. Now, that element of his character where he's trying to deceive Brian is there in both versions. If I had a slight edge, I'll give it to the episode, surprisingly, only because there's that extra character of Joe that he's trying to pin it on and try to give Brian a red herring, potentially. And for that, I guess, if I had a slight edge, I'd give it to CJ in the episode. But I really don't have any preference. I'll just kind of tie him. He kind of serves the same purpose overall. Next up, we have Brian's little brother. I think he might be in the short story, but since he has that iconic moment in the episode, I'll give it to the episode. Brian's parents, some people have actually made the argument they don't like Brian's parents in the episode because they think it's kind of harsh to send him to boarding school. But if you read the short story, there's really no real excuse why Brian gets sent there. He's just a troubled kid. And I guess for the parents, I guess I'll kind of deadlock him here. Let's go into some characters like Joe. Joe is not in the short story. He's only in the episode, so he goes to the episode. But Joe is definitely a breath of fresh air. He definitely subverts the trope of the goody two-shoes character, and he kind of has a wild side. And it's unfortunate, I think, what happens to his character in the story is kind of sad. But Joe was really good, and yeah, I have to give Joe praise because Joe is a really good character. Let's start with the Guardians. Which story do I think the Guardians are better in? Honestly, this might shock you. I think the Guardians are a little bit better in the short story. I think the Guardians had more of a presence, as in the episode, it just played more into that Joe bait and switch type of deal with CJ. And I think the book really focused on the Guardians more. Guardians had more scares. So I'll give the edge to the Guardians in the short story. And then we'll get into two more things. Let's start with the Headmaster. Honestly, in the short story, I think the Headmaster was still a cool character, but he does not come off near as iconic as the episode Headmaster. So I'm going to give the edge to the Headmaster in the episode. The Headmaster in the episode was great. The actor who played him was awesome. He really added something to that character, made him kind of creepy, and I think he's a little more diabolical. And then last, we got the supposed clones / robots. Yeah, we're kind of dipping into aesthetics a little bit. Which ones do I think are better? The clones here or the robots here? I don't know. I like the clones just because of the concept. I think the clones are a little bit creepier than the robots, but not taking anything away from the short story. The robot clones are still cool. I just prefer the flesh and blood clones a little more. They come off a little more creepy because of that added element. Okay, so we ran down through all the characters. Let's go into the atmosphere. Which one has a better atmosphere? I think the short story really tried to sell that atmosphere as best as it could. It did feel like a boarding school. It felt like Brian was out of place. He didn't want to be there. Felt like a place he didn't want to be. Comes off kind of like a prison, kind of like a science lab. But the episode, I think, really elevated it. I think it captured what the short story was going for and then just hit it out of the park. So I'm going to give the atmosphere a little more to the episode, only because the science fiction element gets elevated because of the change that Scott Peters inserted into the story. And I just like it better, so I think it has an overall better atmosphere. Now we're blending into the aesthetics here. There are some different aesthetics in the different versions here. In the short story, the aesthetic is they're robots. The clones are robots. And in the episode, of course, they're clones, like flesh and blood clones. Which one do I prefer? Easily, I'll take the episode aesthetics. That is just creepy. That's so creepy. How they were able to pull this off in the TV show is mind-blowing. How this got past censorship, I don't know. But that was great. And I'm glad it's there. It's awesome. Yeah, edge the aesthetics is going to the episode. Now, overall plot. There are some differences here. The episode adds a lot of things to kind of keep it rudimentary, to kind of talk about both. Essentially, they both run the same. Brian and CJ are kind of working together or trying to live at this boarding school, as you know, these are where the congruencies are. And Brian tries to escape and gets caught, and tries to call home and gets he tries to escape, almost gets caught. He tries to call home, and then he has his program accelerated at one point, and he kind of puts two and two together that there's something wrong. There's some clones, and then the whole plot reveal with CJ happens, and then Brian may or may not have a happy ending and come out unscathed. I'm not gonna tell you. You got to read it or watch it, but essentially they're more so the same. Now, where the episode adds some things is that whole character of Joe. It adds more reason for the parents to send Brian to the boarding school. It adds more science fiction element than the short story did, and it kind of adds a little bit even to the ending, where there's actual motive than just. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a little more to the motive, and I think which one do I prefer overall plot? I'm going to give the edge to the episode, really. Just a better plot. I think it's more fleshed out, and I think that the plot of this is kind of the point where I think this could have been a full book if Stein really wanted to make this a full book. Now we'll go off climax. Which one had a better climax? Honestly, they're more so the same. I think the climax of the story is where Brian reveals what's really going on, and then of course meets with CJ, and then the whole thing. There's like a double climax where he finds out what's happening, if there's clones or not, and then has the realization about CJ, and also finds a group of kids in a cell that may or may not be the real kids or the clones. So it's more so the same, but if I had a preference, I will give it to the episode, only because that aesthetic change made that first part of the climax way better, and the second part is more so the same anyway. So yeah, for the climax, I'll give the edge to the episode. Now for the ending, kind of like the same thing here. If I had a preference for the ending, I'll probably give it to the episode as well. They're pretty close, but like I said, there's an extra motive there that was not mentioned in the short story with Brian, and it kind of ties back to him snooping around and sleuthing around the school and things he uncovered. There's a little extra comedic element because of the little brother being more prevalent there too, and it makes it more comedic and lighthearted. Comes up more, I don't know, uplifting, and it's more of an upbeat ending than you see in Goosebumps stories more often than less often than not. And I just like it more in the episode. Not taking anything away from the short story's ending, it's still great in its own regards. I just prefer the episode. I'm sorry for the glare. This thing is sealed and it reflects a lot of light. So yeah, that's basically the rundown. And as you can see, even though the episode got a lower score because I grade the episodes on more of a precise measure as opposed to a rounding measure with the short story, the episode clearly wins out in so many categories that if I had a preference to say which one is better, I'm easily giving this to the episode. I think the episode of Perfect School is superior. And here's why. I think this episode just adds more to the story. This version gives reason to make it a full book. It's iconic with the performances. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the short story, but this just takes what the short story did and just makes it better. Now, yeah, I do have a negative with it because it kind of drags to make that 42 to 44 minute time crunch, but it's an episode kind of drag, not a book kind of drag, and those are kind of different to me. When an episode drags and when a book drags are two totally different things, especially because these episodes are timed to be 22 minutes. Books, on the other hand, a dragging moment can make you snooze off or make you not want to read, and it could take you like hours to finish the book. So yeah, so easily for me, I think the episode wins, and I think for a lot of people, they would probably agree with me on this. But this is a book franchise. I highly recommend you read the short story first and then you watch the episode. I think you'll enjoy both. I think more often than not, you'll probably enjoy the episode more. If you surprisingly don't, I'm dying to hear why down in the comment section. That's probably a hot take. But yeah, I think both are great. I think you'll enjoy them either way. They both have their different things going for them, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. So yeah, that's my thought on the Perfect School short story versus episode. Let me know down in the comment section if you have seen this before. Do you love this, or do you hate these? And also, which one do you find superior? Do you find the short story superior or the episode superior? I'm dying to know, and I'll see you next time.